Welcome to the ArchDaily LifeCycle panel discussion session, The Future of Architecture. This talk will be about our future architecture and the crossover with construction. The future is changing faster than ever before. Building concepts designed today to be built in 3 to 5 or more years require extensive research to guarantee their future relevance. Let's address the past, the present, and the future of architecture. From the design process to carbon footprint, clean energy, and wood construction, about future-proof engineering, meeting global challenges, sustainable construction materials, modular systems, and more. The way we design and fabricate the built environment is more exciting and challenging than ever. Today, we have 3 great architects as guest speakers. Herforth Nielsen, founding partner of 3XN, Dikkie Scipio, founding partner of KAAN, and Eran, founding principal of ODA New York. My name is Hernandez, creative director of ArchDaily, and I'm going to be the moderator of this panel discussion. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so Kim, the current COVID situation has a huge impact on our entire world. Do you expect COVID to change the way we design our cities, neighborhoods, or buildings, or speed up existing evolutions?
Yes, I think in many ways, if we start with our cities, I think it's actually onto what we were talking about before the COVID situation about making cities greener. I think this will actually maybe speed up the process because we need space, that's for sure. I think some of the cities that have been hit most hard, cities like New York and cities that are very dense and that's not hasn't got the space for the greenery. So I think the way that we plan cities even more will be in this line to make cities even more green, to have more spaces outside our homes and our workspaces where you can go out and of course enjoy life, but also can be a little bit remote from each other. And I think also with the workspaces, I think that will of course change as well. Whereas I don't think that the buildings will probably not be smaller because people will work more at home, but we'll do it in a different way so there's more space around people and actually more diversity around people. Diversity is one of the key words here.
Yeah. Dikkie?
Yeah, I think already a lot of changes were set in motion before COVID. And now, because of the COVID, it all proceeds a little bit faster. I'm also a bit worried about that because I often like to think before we, in blind panic, are closing down our cities. And so we need also this density, and we need other solutions than closing the cities and spreading all the people over the landscape. So I don't know yet what will be the solution, but I think we should have some really clear thoughts about this and also integrate a lot of disciplines. What I see now in our city, you know our city, last week they narrowed the entrance of the Erasmus Bridge and with these ugly concrete blocks. And for some reason, they want to make the city more green or with less traffic. I don't know whether this is the solution. There must be a more intelligent solution, I hope.
Yes, agree. Well, Eran, according to this, probably because of all this situation, we should look for different materials and construction ideas. Where do you think we should look for the building resources, talking about materials and ideas, to build for the future? Which construction techniques or core materials, for example, do you prefer today, or maybe you will look into for the future?
Well, maybe before I answer that, it just allow me to just add something to the previous question,
sure.
Because we're going to talk a lot about what's going to change, but I want to say what I think is not going to change, because people are very concerned. Cities are not going to die, I don't think. Density is not going to disappear, I don't think. Natural behavior of people going to restaurants or hanging out in a bar or reaching out to get a beer out of a crowd is not going to change, I hope. Events and concerts are not going to disappear from the world also. And while we're in it and we feel like the end of the world is coming, let me assure you that it's not going to devastate our cities. I just remember I came to New York City in 1999, and in 2001, September 11, Twin Towers fell in front of my eyes. And I remember having those kind of conversations about the end of the world back then. And by the way, companies, financial companies, bank companies, and everybody left the city into places like Stanford, Connecticut, and others. And we all thought this is the end of density and high tall towers. And as we all know, that's not the case. In 2012, there was Sandy, floated New York City, and water came all the way like 10, 15 feet into buildings. And we said, I remember, that we're never going to go downtown, and nobody would ever buy an apartment on the Hudson River. And this is the end of architecture as we know it. And you know what? Everything is back to normal. And I'm not saying that this is not going to create changes, but I'm just saying there's going to be very interesting changes that are going to occur as an opportunity for us to make better the things that we've thought of doing better before, and not as a punishment and kind of sort of a escape system from our life. So that's just it. And I'm sorry I took the time to answer the first question.
No, of course, of course.
Oh, but I would like to reply to that, because it seems like I was misunderstood a little bit. I don't think that we will go away from cities. I just say that we will make the cities more green. We are just invited for a project in Milan, actually, and Milan has been hard hit by this, by the way. But reinvent Milan, and to reinvent Milan, our proposal for our master plan is to make it extremely green, and with all these benefits that comes out from it. It has nothing, especially to do with COVID, but it makes actually better also in a COVID situation. But it makes it better in so many other ways. Also making the whole thing not even what we call CO2 neutral, but actually benefits back to the pollution and everything in a positive way. So I think that is what I was saying. I just think this period here will speed up the process in going to more green and more sustainable cities in the future.
Yeah, Kim, I totally agree with you. I absolutely, I didn't conflict you. I just said that I totally agree with you, and Dikkie as well, in the sense that we don't have to panic. We just have to continue and build upon things that we cared about before. And this might be an opportunity for all of us to do so, because maybe we have open ears by the government, by some of the officials. Maybe we have the public awareness now that is greater to help us collectively to support these ideas that you've been pushing for a long time.
Yes, exactly. And of course, we have seen a lot of apocalyptic-like solutions in these times.
Right.
But as you mentioned, for sure, this is going to be the opportunity to make better cities, better buildings, to have a better situation in our life. So going back to the question about the building resources, what do you think about? Do you think that also maybe we will look for another type of materials or another type of spaces in the place that we're going to live?
Well, a big portion of our practice has been residential buildings and residential neighborhoods and mixed-use neighborhoods. And so I can tell you that the reactive mode of many of, let's say, the private developers and others were to find immediate solution was, oh, okay, now we realize that outdoor spaces for apartment is really important. Well, we've been preaching that for years and years. So can we now design buildings that all apartments have terrace, because otherwise we're not going to be able to sell? That's actually a blessed a shift in understanding from private sector. There are elements of technology like, okay, can we now use the existing technology to enter buildings without touching anything, right? You'd have an application on your phone, the door would open to you as you approach in the corridor and the lobby, etc., which also I think would impact a lot of other places like airports, etc. And then there's the talk about materials, because let's change the surfaces to materials that are less, I guess, encouraging life of viruses. We've all heard that. I don't even know that there's a science behind this. So these are the immediate kind of things that are going to happen. I'm more hopeful for the bigger things, in the way that we structure our neighborhoods, and a mixed-use nature of our life, so we are more local and less reliant on transit. Ways by which work, live, play are now going to play out into essential rules and regulations in cities, so we can develop cities that are more walkable. These are the things that I feel are more important. Likeable.
Yes, Kim, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think I'll add a little bit to the materials. First of all, I think, but that's got nothing to do with the COVID situation, because that has to do with how I think we need to think more and more sustainable, is to think about buildings in a circular way, how we can build the building so we can dismantle parts of them, or maybe all of them after some years, and use the materials again. But also looking into natural materials. We are now, right now, actually building the tallest timber high-rise office building in Toronto. And timber is so wonderful. I mean, when you see here in Europe, we are doing a couple of big master plans in Milan also, and that's really a big demand now for timber building. So I think these natural materials that has a lot of benefits, both with of course the CO2, but also with the ambience around the timber. This building I'm sitting in here now, that's our office. It's a timber building, and it has a great atmosphere inside, gives something back, both in atmosphere and air quality and whatever. And it's actually prefabricated in a way. Everything is just screwed together and you can screw it apart again. So it has a lot of advantages. And I think that is something that is even on high rises. Actually, we are designing a high rise in Australia that is a timber high rise. So it will come more and more in to work with these materials for these reasons I just mentioned. Yeah.
Dikkie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm always really into getting this quality done. You know, get the quality materials done, and I'm very strong believer in, if you want to build sustainable, then you have to build good architecture, and so that it's adaptable also for other functions or in other means. And if you use really good materials, then they're solid and they will outlive the old functions. And I'm a little bit afraid of this circularity, in the fact that if circularity is used by lesser building projects, then it's just a matter of shorten the lifespan of a building. So because we can easily demolish them again. And I would really strongly go for this quality so that it can last forever. And I'm afraid we forgot this a little bit. So yes, I'm in favor for this circularity when needed, but when not needed, please let us use very good quality material, and also let us use the material that we can bound with. You know, this low maintenance attitude we should get rid of. We should get in love again with our materials and our spaces, so that we want to take care of them. And
I reply to this, because one thing doesn't rule out the other thing. Of course, we need to make quality. We make buildings flexible and make the spaces a strong value. But the biggest waste industry is the building industry. When you build that's about 40% of all waste come from the building industry. In nature, there's no waste, and we have to learn from nature in that sense. And I think we can do good architecture and think about it in a circular way. We have a research department here next to me where we research and these things here, GXN, in my office, and there's a lot of money earned on it. Plus, I think a sensible way of thinking about the resources that we have. Of course, it doesn't rule out. I'm not talking about doing circularity. We are doing great architecture and good materials. We have to do that. That's a must. I think we just have to think. I think we just have to think about it in a more constructive way.
I have a small thing to add because I agree with Kim. Actually, I agree with both of you, but I think there's an emerging building material that relates to also to biodiversity and using planting wood materials as an element of architecture. And it's an interesting point because, Dikkie, you talked about buildings that stand forever as opposed to buildings that go back and circulate into nature. It's kind of two separate approaches. We're doing a tower now in LA. It's actually a residential tower by which we collaborate with a firm called Terraform 1. And the entire base of the building is a butterfly sanctuary, essentially, with thousands of butterflies are kept in a double-skin facade, which is not the typical green wall as we've known it, but it's really a biodiversity that is natural. And it screens areas like parking garages and other places, but it becomes a nature by itself. In a sense, the local butterflies have disappeared from LA, and we're bringing huge quantities of them back into their natural environment while it's in the middle of downtown LA in a residential building. These are the kind of ideas I feel that are going to develop much more. And in a way, we can't look at them as a building material in the sense, in a traditional way, but more in a futuristic way by which nature becomes part of our structure of our buildings.
Right.
Well said.
Yes.
Eran, do we involve also other disciplines than we used to involve then in this kind of projects? I'm really curious about that. So
absolutely. We have to, so as architects, we bring these experts, and there's so many brilliant ideas that has been developed by architects and by biologists and others that unite real nature with biodiversity and animals and construction. And so in this particular case, we couldn't do this thing without Terraform 1. And if you look them up, Mitch is one of the partners. They've been developed this for years, these ideas of how nature could become a building material. But I think part of our responsibility as prolific architects that actually executed a lot of buildings in reality is to incorporate some of these ideas. So biologists, researchers in biodiversity, climate experts, landscapers, all of these people become part of that engagement. By the way, this particular project, the university, UCLA, is very interested. The research department is interested. So all of a sudden, a residential building become a source for students to study about these elements, and they would help with maintenance and stuff like that. So the whole cycle of building becomes much wider in terms of interest and in terms of our partners.
So also in the university is multidisciplinary?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Great, huh? I think we really have to go to that field, that we have much more disciplines to look upon the new challenges that we have.
Well, one of the things, and I think we're off course a little bit, so you're gonna kick us out in a second. But one of the things that I feel our role as architects is, Kim has a research department within his company. We're doing some of it as well. But our ability as individual architects to really go deep into some of those knowledge base and research base is limited. and more partnerships are actually fantastic, because they allow practitioners and architects that are actually have buildings to design to bring about ideas of theories that has been developed in different institutions or researchers into life, and we could be the conveyor of that if we're open enough.
I agree.
Great.
Yes, absolutely. It's very important what different offices, as you are doing, the part of all the research program that you're having. That is very interesting, and how that contributes a lot to the discipline of architecture. Well, as you know, well, it's not the case of Kim, but we are in this time as we are forced to work from home now, right? Do you think will it be necessary for future homes to accommodate a variety of programs, or do you think it's something maybe that is a thought of nowadays, of that we are in an emergency and we are thinking in something like that just now, or it's something that will modify in the future?
So working from home, I think after this we learned a lot from this. Actually, we learned one thing. We learned that is really going to change our patterns in the future is that we don't need to travel as much as we did before. I've been traveling more than 100 days a year, and I'm probably only going to travel maybe half of it if I'm lucky, because now it hasn't actually been so much us, but it has very much been I think the clients want to see us all the time, so we have had to go to meetings very often. For example, we have to go to London every week and like that. Now the clients in London realize that they can have several meetings every day by Skype or by what you call Teams. So they do that, and actually in that way they certainly realize that they are even more in control with their projects than they were before. So it will have great influences in our travel. And I think it will have influences in how we work in office spaces. I think some of our clients are now afraid that the clients that are developing office buildings, that they need less space. But actually, I don't think they will, because I think a lot of the staff will probably from time to time be able to work from home and will work from home. But the people that are working in the office spaces, and we're actually investigating that in our research department, will need more space, in the sense that they will need a bigger diversity of space, and they will need different ways of working in the spaces that they didn't have before. So we actually need the same kind of space for less people. But in the organization, there will be the same amount of people, of course, but some of them will be from time to time be working at home. So I think this remote and working together will be the new tendency. So I think we learned something from the COVID.
For sure. Dikkie, I know that you are working also in a survey. Maybe you can talk about a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's true. You know, we have such technical innovations and all kinds of stuff already also in our homes, but the floor plans, they didn't change that much. And when it started with the lockdown, we thought with the university and with our office to start up a survey just to check how would people feel being at home all the time. So this is an opportunity that we never had before, and we now have. So we launched this survey. It's called Your Home is Your Shelter. And we basically asked the people about their living conditions, but also what they really like and what they really dislike about their home environment. And up till now, it's running 8 weeks now. And you see also the difference in between the replies of the first week and after a while, where people are getting used to their circumstances. And well, over 25 countries now are applying, and we hope to get a lot of data out of it. And some of it is already very surprising, I must say. You assume certain outcomes that are not totally true.
Well,
So,
for example, Dikkie, I'm curious, what are the outcomes that are surprising?
now, for one is that you must know the most of the people that were applying were younger people, so up to I think 35 or something, and I assumed that having an outside space would be essential in these days. But it's not even at the top 5 of the emergency needs that they like in their home environment. What I can see now that they really like to have a flexibility in their floor plan, so that not everything is fixed or pre-designed to do only one task. So this is something that was, I thought, more private space, maybe more rooms. But yeah, the come out is quite different.
I understand the flexibility in works in the homes and the layouts is. I was actually thinking about that too, but it all depends on if it's people without kids and with kids. Probably you'll probably get some other answers. You probably realize that from your.
The half of the survey is about with how many people do you live together, but about age, so have you kids or not, and the other half is about quality of space. And we're now rearranging the data so that we can say, okay, well, maybe in these countries there's a different demand than in others. Maybe in other each time you have other needs. But up to now.
It's fascinating. Go ahead, Kim, I'm sorry.
But also I think it depends on where the people that you questions live. For example, if they live in New York, I know we have an office in New York, and Jens, the partner, Charles, lives there, and he hasn't got a terrace to go out on, and he's been desperate with his kids and everybody. So I think if you are in a town where there's a lot of outdoor areas where you can go to, might not be the biggest demand. But if you live in an area like a very dense area like Manhattan, then or Brooklyn, whatever, then you would prioritize, I think, maybe terraces, as you talked about earlier, Eran,
right,
in the buildings.
I think it's fascinating that you guys are doing the research, because this is rarely done. We've been doing that for quite a few years, where in a residential building, especially on big rental projects in New York City, we would go back and survey with people that live in that building different aspects of the building afterwards. So we can actually get an input, because we sit in our office and make assumptions about what's good for people, but we never get the feedback. And I agree that there's some surprising outcomes of that. And one of the things that I totally agree is that this was an opportunity of a test that otherwise would never happen in the world. To stop the entire world for 3 months to be at home is something that we would never do. And that really allowed us, and I think a lot of people, to have a new appreciation for their apartments, especially in small cities, in large cities like New York, where quite often we felt, you can rent a room with a roommate and it's fine because the city will provide everything. I just come here to sleep. I'm just going to stay here for a few hours. And people now all of a sudden have new appreciations for their homes, but not only their apartment, their buildings, the quality of what the building provides and what their immediate neighborhood provides. And when we talk about outdoor spaces, we all like to promote green roofs in buildings, but the idea of having an accessible roof so people can actually step out, even in situations like that, is something that is always a need. It's just that now it became an acute need for people. Flexibility in general, accessibility to other elements of our lives that are in a walking or biking distance, where we maybe were less acute about this before the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the outside space, of course, it also depends on quality, what is really outside. Can you go outside or not?
Right.
And if not, yeah.
Well, I think that we've been, you know, at ODA, we've been investigating what we call the breathing room of a building. And I know that Kim's office is doing very similar studies by which we try to expand the envelope and the form of the building to accommodate more experiences. And we quite often say, because New York City is an extreme city where buildings were built vertically as a simple extrusion and the facade was two-dimensional to a point where we lost all of the advantage that a facade could bring as a live organism that you can, you know, not only step outside, you can see your neighbors, you can interact with the outdoors. This entire sort of plasticity of buildings, the ability for them to do more than just accommodate a series of rooms with a window is something that we've been fascinated with. And I think now it's going to become more acute for all of us to start thinking, okay, multi-family or a tower is not necessarily just a curtain wall, flat curtain wall that steps up all the way. It could probably do many more things that we haven't thought about.
I think that's interesting you say that, Eran, and that actually this situation is bringing new questions up and actually new possibilities as well, where it's been harder. We have known it as architects for a longer time, that we should prioritize terraces and amenity spaces and like that a lot more. But now it's more evident for the clients also that there's actually a big value, also economically value in these things. So that way we have the chance to improve the architecture.
A quick example, you know, you've seen this, I think, in my office, but we've looked at a tower. In New York City, you're very limited in footprint, right? You can only go up. We've looked at a tower that goes up, but then separates, literally create gaps in the buildings that become gardens, which, you know, previously people would say, why would you ever do that? I mean, what, you know, spends of energy to carry the columns and create a sort of a void spaces within the tower. And now it seems like, imagine that every 3 floors would have an ability to get into a garden that is secured from the wind, and it's kind of in the footprint of the building. That would be a dream come true to many of us quarantines in New York.
I like that project, by the way.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're reaching to our limit time. So I would like to ask you like a last question and also to give you opportunity to talk about a little bit about the projects you're working on. So which of your projects in pipeline are you particularly looking forward to and why? Probably you can start, Eran, that you already talked for one project, but maybe that's not the one, but...
Well, one of the most anticipated projects we've done is actually in Europe. So it's our project in Rotterdam, from all places. And I think part of the excitement for a New York office to work in Europe it makes it even sweeter. But this is, to me, a project that consolidates so many aspects that we collectively have to deal with in cities. It's sort of a renovation and recreation of an old historical building, the old post office building of Rotterdam. So it's an adaptive reuse. This is something we all talk about all the time. It's a mixed-use development because it has residential, office, commercial, meeting spaces, you know, cultural spaces all together in one complex. And it's a tower, essentially, that has a very kind of articulated facade and very deep facade that become what I call a man-made terrain. The facade is not just a two-dimensional, but it's collecting water, it's providing outdoor spaces, it creates a sort of a vertical neighborhood. And all of these elements together come into one project called The Post in Rotterdam, right on Koolsingel. And construction should start any time now. We're waiting for the COVID to kind of come down. So we're very excited about that one.
Good. Dikkie?
Yeah, well, I will finish, hopefully, a project that I've been working for 60 years now. And I hope to finish it this year. It's the Museum for Fine Arts in Antwerp. So it's a 19th century building and has to be extended and renovated. So it was a very, very long journey. So I hope to finish this. And the project that I look forward to start with, it's still a bit secret project, but it's also a multiple use where the whole, let's say, celebrating life together with living will be incorporated in an older building, a very interesting building. And the thing is that it's so actual that we all want to go out, we all want to meet, and we can't. And now we have to figure out how we can still embrace the culture. So even, you know, if you can wave at 1.5 meter, how do you get all the culture? How can you get the theater, the movies, the music? How do you get it in? And when you can incorporate it in the whole project, it would be great if you still can enjoy music if you live in such a building.
Great. Kim?
It's, there's a lot of projects going on, but I think one of these that this particular situation has actually fast moved is the Sydney Fish Market. It was sort of, it's a big, huge public building done by New South Wales government or sponsored by them. So it's government money going into it. So that's always, when you design and you won a competition and you design this, it's always, you know, will they let it go or not? And this situation here has helped us, because now Australia really wants to forward all the public works, and one of the ones that they are forwarding is the fish market. So this speeding ahead now, and it's a very exciting building for us. It's at the end of a promenade that starts from the opera that was designed by Eran, another Danish architect, and ending up in our fish market. There's an 82,000 square meter, 820,000 square feet building. That's a big market, and a lot more than a market. It's sort of the community place, community center for the whole area as well. That we are very excited about getting out. And this is going to be, of course, a meeting space where people cannot meet now. I think they'll really go there and meet in the future. So it's going to be a destination for Sydney in the future. So I'm very excited about that. This now is speeding along.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts and ideas of the future of architecture. So thank you for being part of this panel discussion, and hopefully we can repeat this in the near future. Big hugs to everyone and success in all your projects.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much. Good to see you guys.